Hi there, this is Jeff Sklar, and I'm pleased to welcome you to my podcast, The Practice of You. I'm a lawyer in Los Angeles, and I'm fascinated by lawyers who have brought joy and balance to their lives in a career that doesn't always make that easy. In each episode, I'll have a one-on-one conversation with a lawyer who excels professionally, but more importantly is committed to promoting their well-being. Whether athletic, creative, or mindful, there are dozens of ways that lawyers have achieved balance, and we're going to explore that together. You can find this show on all of our major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, sklarkirsch.com. And with that, let's start practicing. Hey there, this is Jeff Sklar, and this is The Practice of You. And today I'm here with Christopher Frost, my good friend and the principal at Frost LLP. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here. So Chris and I and our firms work very closely together. Great long relationship. Chris is a litigator here in Los Angeles. He will tell you about his firm and how they are unapologetically aggressive. And maybe let's start out. You talk briefly about your practice and your firm.
So we opened Frost LLP in June of last year, 2023. Yeah. And we started out with 4 lawyers. We decided we were going to be a litigation-only law firm and that we were going to focus on what we do best, which is aggressively litigating cases.
Yeah.
So we went from 4 lawyers in June of 23 to 29 lawyers in June of 2024 with 4 summers and 4 law clerks coming.
That's unbelievable growth.
It's been pretty crazy.
What do you attribute that to, the success so quickly?
So I think it's a combination of a couple of things. One, obviously, you have to be good at what you do and surround yourself with people who want to be there and want to do this kind of work. And I think the other thing that's probably even more important than that is we put a real emphasis on developing relationships, not focusing on invoices. And people know the difference. Yeah. So when we're focusing on our clients, we're focusing on what is best, not just for their litigation needs, but how does that square with their business goals and their business expectations? So, people know the difference. They know when we're invested in them and not just in, how much money can we turn this month?
Sure. You're actually counseling.
Exactly right.
Yeah, and which is what we love to do. And, my practice is transactional, and that's where we've done work together. And you've worked with our litigation group as co-counsel, which is terrific.
Well, and I'll tell you, giving credit where credit is due, Justin Goldstein, your head of litigation.
Absolutely.
He, part of that viewpoint came from learning from him when we used to work together, and then watching him as he spread his wings and went out and worked eventually with you. And to watch him and the way that he handles relationships with clients, you can tell that he's truly invested in that person and that business. Yeah. And it shows. And if it's evident to me, it's going to be evident to the client. So, part of where I learned that was from watching Sklar lawyers.
That's great. Well, listen, we love the collaboration. But today we are here to talk about body art, really tattoos, and in particular, your tattoos, which are plentiful.
I have a few.
You have a few. And so I was really excited to do this subject. I currently have no tattoos. I'm a tattoo aspirant.
I was going to say, I love the word currently.
Right. So that's something I would want to do when I'd get the right idea. But you've gone and done it, and it's been a big part of your life for a long time. So maybe just to start off, talk to me about your tattoos in general and why you started getting them.
So I got my first tattoo the night I found out I passed the California bar.
Oh, wow.
And that was my way of celebrating. And I had known since college I wanted to get one. I was never brave enough to do it.
Was it your bar number?
No.
Right. That would actually be fun.
But it was the Scales of Justice, which has since been covered.
Oh, got it. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. But I decided at the time, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. It seems like a, significant time. We're going to celebrate it this way. So I went out. That's where I got the first one.
Were you nervous?
I was.
It's a commitment, right?
It is. It's you can have them removed, which hurts worse than the tattoo itself. So, it's you really are committed to the idea of what it is.
Yeah.
And over time, when they say it's addicting, they're not kidding.
Yeah.
Like once I was able to feel what it was like to express myself that way, I just wanted to continue to do more and more and create more of that expression. And so I found the right artist that I wanted to work with, and now he does all my work.
And so how long have you been working with him?
It's 2024 now, so 21 years.
Wow.
Yeah, 21 years.
So you guys go way back.
We do.
So were you nervous, not just because, I'm going to get a tattoo, this is a big commitment, this is going to hurt, but also did you have any thought about, I'm going to be a lawyer and will people think anything and, all of that sort of stuff? Did that factor into it?
I did. It did for a while. And so the first tattoo I got on my chest. And then when I continued to get further tattoos and finally got brave enough to move on to my arms, the first one that Pete did, he did a dragon here on my right bicep, but I wouldn't let him come down below the elbow because I wanted to make sure if I have a dress shirt on, I can roll my sleeves up and still not have to worry about it.
Yeah.
And then what I realized was it's not exactly foolproof because when you're sitting in a meeting with the client and you stretch your arm out, they're going to see it peeking out anyway.
Yeah.
And then what I quickly realized was not only was it not a detriment to that relationship, but it became a conversation piece. And so people actually, I found, became more comfortable and more relaxed when they realized this is not just what they perceive to be a stuffy, white shoe litigator, but somebody with some real character, with real personality who I can have a conversation with.
Well, it's interesting, right? It's interesting. The choices, like what tattoos do you have on you now? What are the different images?
So for the most part, I have Japanese art on both my sleeves and then my chest pieces. I have a few pieces that are significant in different ways.
Yeah. Like
the one right here you can see here.
Yeah.
That's a hummingbird. And the reason I have that is because one of my clients, Adam and Kristen Spencer, their two of their sons died of fentanyl overdoses. Oh, wow. And so same dose, same time, mom found them, the whole,
both kids.
Both.
That's
2 of 5 boys.
Tragic.
It was. And so instead of they decided, they said, we can do one of two things. We can either roll over and die, or we can continue to live and make something out of this and let something beautiful grow out of it. So they were in their garden one day, and they had 2 hummingbirds fly through that they had never seen before, and they just stayed. And to them, whether it was real, metaphorical, whatever the case may be, it was still significant to them, and so they formed the Hummingbird Project. And so what the Hummingbird Project does is it's a 501c3 that raises money to send people to rehab for free and to raise awareness for addiction. And I had also had, both of my parents had been in rehab for addiction when I was younger, and so it took on a special significance to me.
Yeah.
And so that's what we do now. We work with them at most of our events. We put it on our website. We work with them to help raise money for that. And so I thought, you know what? This is important. This is significant. I want it right here. So that is one that, departed from the sort of the traditional, but that's how that came about.
That's so interesting. And so I notice you refer to the art as pieces, just like somebody would refer to a piece of art in their living room or in a museum.
Yep.
So that's interesting, right? So when you think about what's on your body, you're thinking about it as art.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, number one, because I believe it is. It's just a different kind of canvas. And number two, because, I hope we all view our bodies as art, even without tattoos.
Yeah.
I mean, in the sense of it is something that we can shape and mold and create for our betterment and for our health. And when we do that, that reflects in the way that we look.
Yeah.
And so when we're putting something on it, that's just putting, to me, it's art on art.
Have you Are you a creative person? Do you consider yourself a creative person?
I do, although my methods of expression are different sometimes.
Yeah.
So like I have in my office, if you go to my office, I have my collection is, I grew up watching creep shows with my dad.
Yeah.
And so in my office, I have a wall that's a collection of masks from all the movies that I watched.
wow.
A lot of them are autographed, and Jason and Leatherface and Mike Myers and Terrifier.
Right.
And
you can
all
wear
of
those
that.
into depositions.
Not yet.
Right.
Although I like the idea.
Something to do in the future. Yeah.
And so I'm a big believer in expressing that creativity and feeling comfortable to do that. And going back to the earlier point that you were making about the issue with respect to whether or not I was concerned about it at first, I really got to the point where I viewed it the opposite direction, which is if the client doesn't appreciate that or has a problem with that, then that's okay. They can find a different lawyer that they feel more comfortable with.
Right.
And just got to the point where it was important enough to me to express my own creativity and to be able to do that comfortably, that if that interferes with that relationship, then they can just find another relationship, and that's okay.
Right.
And that's so it's 180 degrees. And I view it as growth, but to get to the point where you worry about those things, and I do think we still have an obligation to look professional because we are in a professional service, but at the same time to not worry so much about, is my creativity going to offend somebody, to get to the point where you say, then I want to be able to surround myself with people who are comfortable with my creativity.
Yeah. Do you think our gig as lawyers stifles our creativity or self-expression?
I do. I think not only does the profession itself have that impact on people, I also believe that people's concern about that exacerbates the issue.
Yeah.
And so to be able to step out of that mold, and I don't have to be in a suit all of the time. I don't have to fit a particular profile. I don't have to look like every other law firm, is important to us. So that's, I do believe it's a problem. I do believe it's an issue, and I love being able to sort of be a mold breaker that way.
Yeah. Look, I think self-expression makes you feel good.
It does.
Right? You get to be authentically you.
Yep.
And you've got your tattoos, and they're cool, and that it speaks to who you are, and I think you're right. If it's not a fit for them for some reason, you seem to have no shortage of clients, so that's okay too if it's not right for them. You did something interesting because you brought it into your firm branding. On your website, you have your headshot, and it is not a conventional headshot. It's you with a long sleeve shirt, but rolled up sleeves, as I recall.
That's
kinda
right.
Arms tucked maybe or something.
That's correct.
And you can see, and so you can see the tattoos down your forearms, which is really awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So was that bringing it into your branding? It's one thing that you're walking around with tattoos under your suit and most people don't know or whatever, but to go full front and center with it in your branding, tell me about that decision process.
So the way I came to that decision was, it had less to do with thinking that we want to brand and market something, because we call ourselves unapologetically aggressive, and we do that for a reason. And it's not because we're trying to brand or market that. It's because that's who we authentically are. And so the idea when we said, what is this going to look like? How are we going to make this website look? How are we going to reflect it in the firm? It was, we want to be who we are, and we want the world to be able to see who we are. And make no mistake, when you walk in the door of our law firm, you're going to know what to expect. And when you sit across the table from us at a deposition, you're going to know what you're in for. And when you sit down at a deposition and I'm about to ask you questions, I want you to worry, right? Yeah. But I want you to worry because I want you to know what to expect and who you're going to see. And so when we decided to do it this way, it was really just another form of self-expression to say, here's who we are, here's who we authentically are, and here's what you can expect.
It's so personalized. That's the word I would use. I love marketing. I find it interesting how different firms market themselves, and there's so many great things out there. But I wouldn't say that any of them really, and maybe it's a function of us having smaller firms, but are personalized in the way that you've been able to capture a feeling, right? A message.
Good, thank you.
And put it up there. So that's pretty cool.
Thank you. If you walk when you walk into our law firm, you'll see the same thing.
Right.
So the column, when you walk into the reception area and you turn and you look, the main column, the support column in the reception area has a mural that's painted by my same artist. By my tattoo guy that'll bleed up onto the ceiling. And it's the same thing. It's just trying to pull the whole theme together.
So are you going for a full body, like your total coverage?
100%.
So that you're like one piece, right?
100%.
So how long is that going to take?
Forever.
Right. But are you thinking like under the clothes, or at some point will it start to creep upward to the cranium,
to the Mike Tyson?
right.
It's
a teardrop for every trial.
It is currently, it is going to stop at the wrists and the neck. Like nothing, no hands, no neck, and no face.
Right,
but that's
you want to be able to go into court. And,
those are my only
limits.
Not be a
distraction to a jury or whatever. Like
exactly, those are my only limits. And so everything else, I'm looking for and going for one full piece. And frankly, I'm not in a hurry because I'll just go in and do another piece when Pete has time and I get inspired. But it's the process is as much fun as the result. Just thinking about what's next and where we're going to go next. And I want to have the full body, but I don't ever want to get to a point where I've got no more room to tattoo.
Right. You don't run out of canvas. You have a real problem if you do, right? You can't
Exactly.
make more. You'd have to gain weight. And then you could have more surface area. That's really interesting. So your kids have tattoos?
So my son, who's 20, Caleb, he's trying to outdo me, and so he told me. He said. I said, what do you want to get for your 18th birthday? And he said, a tattoo. And I said, okay.
Was that number one?
Number one, correct.
Oh, wow.
And I said, okay, the deal is the same rules apply to you as apply to me. I'll pay for it. I'll bring you out to get the tattoos, but you can't get anything that is obscene or vulgar that you're going to regret later or that you would be afraid for somebody to see. And you got to go to my guy because he's the only one that I trust. So he first tattoo he got was a full sleeve. So
wait, so out of the gates, he's like, okay, I'm gonna get my first tattoo, and it's gonna be my whole arm.
That is correct. And I mean, it took him 4 sessions, but to his credit, I mean, he even started with the forearm and worked up instead of down, and so. And then I get a call from Pete one day, and so he's now got both full sleeves. His back is fully done. And then I get a call from Pete one day, and he said, your son's going to be here next week. And I was like, oh, he didn't tell me that. And he goes, probably because he's getting his hands done.
Oh, he is?
And he got his palms and his backs of his hands. And I was like,
palms?
He got his palms done.
That would hurt.
Yeah. He said from the minute he hit him with the needle, he regretted it from the moment he hit it. He said, I can't stop now. So he is
because now it's underway.
Exactly. It's like how am I going to argue with him saying he wants to get tattoos? Yeah. So it's like So he's got it in his blood too.
Wow. So we talked about your law firm marketing, and we talked a little bit about self-expression and creativity. Talk to me about what the tattoos do for your, let's say mental well-being, for your how you feel, all of that, because that's a big part of what we talk about on this show.
Good. So one of the things that I find that is especially difficult for attorneys, and I fell into the same trap and still sometimes do, is it's really hard to get away from your job, and it's really easy to use your job as an excuse to ignore and avoid everything else. I don't have time to go to the gym because I've got this brief that has to be done. And if we don't ever get to a point where we're willing to put it down for a minute, as somebody told me one time, they said, if you wait until there's nothing else on your desk to go home, you'll never go home.
Right.
And I fell into that trap. And I was at BigLaw for a long time, and I'm not using BigLaw, not blaming BigLaw. I used it as an excuse, which is I lost all of my hobbies, and I lost a lot of the time that I could have dedicated to myself and enjoying the fruits of the work that I was doing. And so I had the one tattoo, and I said, you know what? I'm going to go back. I'm going to get another one. And I just started, and it gave me that outlet to be able to find that creativity again and find that reason to walk away and focus on something else. And, frankly, I tell Pete, I call it my pain therapy. So,
and how long does it take to get? I mean, it can take multiple sessions, right? Like hours and hours to get something done.
So the longest the longest I've ever sat at one time is 6 hours. The longest I'll sit now is 4 hours, because at about the 3.5 hour mark is when they, because they're using the tattoo gun and putting in the ink, but then they wipe it away with the paper towel. And when you hit about that 3.5 hour mark, it just starts feeling like sandpaper. And that's when you're like, all right, time to walk away. We'll pick this up next time. So I'll sit. Usually I don't get pieces that he can finish in 4 hours. So I'll do multiple sessions on a single piece. But about 4 hours is as long as I'll push it.
Do you guys so what do you do for the 4 hours? You guys talk?
Yeah, just talk.
So is it sort of like being like old school barbershop, like you're in the chair, a guy's shaving you, talking about life and whatever, but it's just a tattoo gun instead.
Exactly right. Yeah. Exactly right. And
people are probably hanging out. There's other people there.
Exactly. So although there will be times like when he did my elbow, like when the hardest piece I got was my right elbow. And because not only is it on that bone, but you're having to hold your arm like this. You can't relax the whole time. And it took him almost an hour just to do the elbow because he was going deep with that black ink. And that is the one time I can remember sitting there just cringing. And I finally told him, I said, Pete, don't talk.
Yeah.
Just work.
I need to get in the zone and you need to hurry up.
Exactly.
I'm not going to live through this.
Yeah.
What did you get on your elbow?
It's a piece that is, it's just color. It's basically filler to fill in between the waves and the dragons that are on this arm. And so what he'll do is he'll put the pieces in, the main pieces, and then he'll fill it in with filler. But I told him on that elbow, I said, because a lot of times if you look at somebody who will get their arm done, they'll avoid the elbow, like they'll tattoo around it. And I was like, go square on.
Why? Because it gets scrunched up?
Because it's bad news. Because when you hit that bone,
it doesn't feel good. It's thin.
Doesn't feel good. So the two areas that tend to hurt the most are your really fleshy areas like your stomach, or your really bony areas like your ribs and your elbows. And it's just you can just feel it echoing in your body.
Oh my! Do you know many other lawyers that are as into tattoos as you?
Some of my friends now.
Really?
Like several people have gone to Pete, and
you've inspired them.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yep. But they say, I need to get a tattoo. Where's your guy? And so kind of it creates a movement.
And you've shared his name with me.
Yep, that's right.
So
when are you going?
I have to figure that. First, I have to figure out what I would want. So that is, now let's talk about money. This is expensive.
It is.
Right? Like this isn't like a cheap hobby.
Correct.
So if you want to get a piece that's going to take, let's say a couple sittings, so 8 hours to get that piece done.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they bill by the hour like we do, or how
They do.
They do.
Yeah,
they have
they
a
do.
rate. They have a rate.
Yeah, correct.
Oh wow. Okay.
So
like, what could you? If somebody wants to get a sleeve on their arm, let's get commercial here. Like, what does that cost?
So if you get an individual piece, like an artist will quote you, for a smaller piece, $150, $200.
What's that for? Like this?
Yeah, for right.
Like a little Mickey Mouse.
Yeah, pretty
much. Right. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah.
But typically, if you're getting a bigger piece, they'll do it by the hour, and Pete charges $350 an hour. So you're talking. It really depends on how fast your artist works, and there's a wide variety of, obviously, quality.
Yeah.
But just also how heavy-handed the artist is, and also how quickly they move. And that will also reflect in your pain tolerance and how well you sit there. And so if you can take it well, and then to some extent it makes a difference in whether you do color or black and white, because if you do black or you do gray, they don't have to go as deep with the ink as they do with color to make it stay. And so
the color will come out.
Yeah, the color, you've got to go deeper to make it stay. And then you also, depending on how well your skin holds it, you may have to do multiple sessions to go over and over it again. You don't have to do that as much with the black or the gray.
Yeah.
If you sit there and you take it well, for a whole sleeve, you're talking 4 or 5 sessions, probably 20 to 25 hours at $350. Do that math, $6,000 to $8,000 to $9,000 for a sleeve. And if you go to somebody,
still cheaper than a complaint. Yeah. Right.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
And if you and that's at a reasonably priced one. Pete is reasonably priced, but if you go to some of these guys who have gained prominence and popularity, their rates will go up accordingly, and it can get substantially more expensive.
Got it.
So go see Pete.
Yeah. Now, what about? I've seen. I don't know if these are Japanese tattoos, but where they do it
The poke and stick.
With tapping it. You've never had anything like that.
I have not yet, but it's on the list.
Really?
It's on the bucket list.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. The guy who trained Pete, Master Fu, the plan is someday to go overseas to see him in Taiwan, and that's how he does. So It's on the list.
Very cool. What else is important to you that you'd want to talk about related to your tattoos, or how they tie into the profession? And I have one question I want to tack on to that, which is there one tattoo that really resonates with you that you have as an attorney that you think sort of represents you in particular?
So the piece I have on my calf, I actually got the word Frost from the logo tattooed.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's under.
I hope you wrote that tattoo cost off.
Business expense.
Clearly advertising.
And it's right below a severed head.
Whoa.
And so it's metaphorical, obviously, but when we say unapologetically aggressive, like we mean it. Like you need to know when you come to us that we absolutely have your best interest in mind, and both legal and business, and within the bounds of our ethical obligations, we'll do whatever it takes to protect you and those interests. And we do.
So that tattoo where it says Frost on your leg.
Yeah,
so you should wear shorts as much as possible.
It means if you mess with my clients, I'll cut your head off.
Right. There you go. You heard it from the horse's mouth. Great. And anything else that you think it's important, including like advice that maybe you'd have for other lawyers in terms of their own self-expression, how to reconcile being a lawyer, being in what is, a conservative-ish type gig with fully expressing themselves?
I think it's two things. One is don't be afraid to be yourself, and in whatever way you choose to be creative, be authentic about it. Don't get a tattoo because that's the thing that people are doing. Get a tattoo because it's important to you. And if that's not really what's you, find your creative outlet that is, because you want to grow to be more authentically you, not more of a mold of what you think somebody else or society wants you to be.
Yeah.
So I think that's number one. And number two is whether it's a tattoo or a piercing or anything else that has nothing to do with your physical appearance. But I think number two is to do the best you can do as a lawyer in your, or whatever your profession is, to put yourself in a position where you have more opportunity to be creative in the ways that you really want to be. And what I mean by that is the way I express myself now and the way that we write and the way that I talk and the way that, I look with the tattoos. There are things that I could not do if I were working for somebody else in a different law firm.
Right.
And so to be able to position yourself to be able to be as creative as you can be in the ways that you want to be, being able to be your own boss helps.
It certainly helps.
It does.
Yeah.
And so I'm sure you see the same thing, that you can do the things that you want to do and express yourself the way that you want to express yourself when you don't have to answer to somebody else. You only answer to yourself and your partners.
Yeah, certainly when you're a younger lawyer and you're coming up, you're worried about making every sort of mistake that you might make, both legal mistake or even a mistake, and that just could be career limiting.
Yep.
And as you get a little bit more advanced in your career, you get to say, I'm going to do this my way.
Yep, exactly right.
Yeah.
And so do what it takes to get to the point where you can do it your way and decide what it is that you really want to do and where you want to be. And, your creativity and your professional prowess and motivation can line up. They can coexist.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I did wrong early on is I didn't see that. Like, I thought if I'm taking away time to do something creative, I'm taking that time away from when I could be billing hours and when I could get my numbers up and I could be more impressive to the partners. So one day I could make partner. And, what you lose sight of is the fact that what you do, as long as you don't make any major mistakes, what you do on an individual daily basis ultimately makes a very little difference in your overall career path. It's another day. And, it's okay to walk away for that 4 hours and take that time to yourself to get that tattoo and decompress rather than sitting at your desk that much later to a point of diminishing returns because you just think you have to be there.
Yeah.
So I think finding those creative outlets and finding an excuse to walk away to enable you to do that is probably the most important advice I could give.
It's a very red pill, blue pill.
It is. That's right.
If you can trust that stopping for a little bit will actually make you so much happier and more productive, then you take the red pill.
Although it won't surprise you, I'm more of a John Wick than a Matrix guy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, Chris, I appreciate you coming on. It's super interesting.
You can't stop yet.
Yeah.
You still have not answered the when am I going to get one question.
Yeah. Well, I have an idea.
Okay.
And I can't commit to a time frame yet. I would have to make sure I will not become unhoused if I get one. But I think, as I mentioned to you, I'm a swimmer, and this guy Caleb Dressel, who's just a fantastic swimmer in the Olympics, he's going to the Olympics again, has a pretty wicked wing over here, and I'm not above copying people. Can you copyright a tattoo? I hope not.
Well, the key is just to get some subtle difference in it so you can own it and say it's your own.
Right.
So here's what's going to happen. One day we're going to have this episode. You're going to have the episode where you actually have the tattoo.
Oh, we're going to come back and do it. I'm going to be laying on a table in the middle for 4 hours. Well, listen, this is awesome. I was really excited to do this. I admire you.
Thank you.
Professionally and personally. I think you're a class act, and you're also one of a kind, and that's what we should always aspire to be.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you. Thank you. You too.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you all next time, and thanks for joining us on The Practice of You. Thanks for joining us today on The Practice of You, hosted by me, Jeff Sklar. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, sklarkirsch.com. I really appreciate your positive reviews, comments, and sharing this show with others. Until next time, enjoy the present moment and don't forget to practice you. This podcast is considered attorney advertising by the California State Bar. The discussions in this podcast do not constitute professional advice of any kind, including without limitation, medical, legal, or business. And you are advised to consult with your own physicians, lawyers, and other advisors before undertaking any activities discussed in this podcast.